The Fault in My Heart Part 2. I was losing my mind, waiting for the doctor to give me news about my father's health. I was not ready to say goodbye, but he had been suffering from heart problems for a year now, and he was old. He did not have the best chances. Reggie handed me some coffee when he came back from talking to the doctor. "Here, have something to drink. They have managed to stabilize him for now. He said you can see him in a couple of minutes," he said. "Thank you," I managed to let out. I was not able to talk to the doctor when he came to give news of my father's health. All I could do was say a silent prayer to the universe, God, I don't know. I had never believed in the higher power. I drank the coffee, but I barely registered the taste because all I could do was wish for those 5 years back. I would trade all that gallivanting for more time with him. I finished drinking it and went to see him. He was awake, but looked very weak and could barely open his eyes. "Dad," I held his hand. "Francis, I'm so happy to see you." He managed to smile. "You scared me so much, Dad. Please do not do that ever again." He let out a weak laugh. "You have always been an emotional person, just like your mother. I wanted to talk to you about something. I do not know how much time I have left," he told me. "What is it?" I asked. "I'm sorry that I did not protect you when I should have. I knew how difficult it was for you to come out, and I told you to hide it. I wanted to protect you, but I pushed you away." "Dad, please do not. You cannot blame yourself for that," I said. "Do one thing for me, please." It felt so much like a final request. I hesitated before I let him make his request. Then I nodded for him to continue. "Please stop living as if you have a bone to pick with everybody. Do not argue. You have always acted like the world owes you something. Ever since your mom passed away, you rebelled against me when I tried to put you on the right path. And then after the accident with Reggie, you hated him with passion. Please let someone of that bad blood go." It took him a while to say all of that, as his voice was getting weaker. I understood what he was saying, but I could not find it within myself to not be at war with the world. Maybe if someone had told me that I was spoiled a long time ago, I would not have ended up like this, soon to be alone. "I will try," was the best that I could offer. He smiled and told me that he needed to rest now. I left after, promising to return later. I gave Reggie my car to take Mrs. Finkel home because I was going to spend the night at the hospital. At some point during the night, I fell asleep. I was woken up by a man calling my name. I looked up and saw the doctor. "Sir, I have news about your father," he said. "What's wrong?" I asked. "I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Ray has unfortunately passed." I heard nothing else after that. I started bawling like a baby. In the past, I never show any sign of weakness or emotion in public. But on that day, I lost it. Before I knew it, Reggie came out of nowhere and embraced me. I turned weak in his arms, staying like that for a very long time. I had always been able to keep my cool in any situation. That defensive mechanism fell into place once all the tears had dried. Mrs. Finkel and Reggie helped me with the unnecessary paperwork to prepare for my father's funeral. I went through all the motions, accepted the condolences, met with the undertakers, made all the arrangements, etc. without cracking. Then when it was nighttime, I would take my sleeping pills and fall into darkness until the next day. The day of the funeral came, and there were a lot of people in attendance. My father had been a well-respected man, a humanitarian, who tried to keep the peace too hard sometimes. Many people offered comfort, brought casseroles, and offered shoulder to cry on. But I was numb. I could not believe that I would not be subjected to him forcing me to spend hours reading business documents, or him putting on my favorite music when I studied because he always wanted to make me comfortable. All the good memories made the bad ones fade into nothing. I have spent 5 years resenting him for always trying to keep the peace, for abandoning me for months when he mourned my mother. I was tired of that now. I had written his eulogy on one of the nights when I could not stop thinking. It was a long message to him with all the things I wished I could say to him and forgiving him for the one time that he had wronged me. When I was done, I got applause, but I could barely stand to be there anymore. I went off to a corner and took a swig from my hip flask. It had been his, but he had given it to me when I left. I had found it rather odd and vowed never to use it, but now I could see the benefits. As I watched them lower him, I tried hard to keep my composure. I caught Reggie's eye across the yard, and he gave me a small smile. He had been there for me from the moment that I found out my dad was no more. And we had not argued even once. Not that this was a situation where our arguing could have helped without anything. Once everyone was gone, I was left alone, standing in front of the fresh grave. "Why did you leave me?" I had planned to say something less weak than that, but I could not help feeling like I was a toddler once again now. I felt the tears coming, then I took a swig from the flask. I walked away from his grave and wondered how I would ever be okay again. I went to a bar after that and drank the night away. All I wanted was to numb the pain that was in my heart. I have been trying to keep it in for so long, but now I felt as if I was losing the grip on my composure. Many men who knew my father came to give their condolences and tell me stories about him. And every time they left, I missed him even more. At some point, I found myself outside, walking. Suddenly, I had the urge to go see Reggie of all people. I just had a feeling that if I saw him, I would feel so much better. I knew where he stayed because I dropped him there a few days before. I knocked on his door, but I got no response. "Reggie?" I shouted as I pounded on the door. A very sleepy-looking Reggie opened the door a few seconds later. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Peachy," I sighed. He gestured for me to get in. "You're drunk," he said. "True," I giggled. He rolled his eyes as he made his way to the fridge and took out a bottle of water, which he handed to me. "Thank you, you're so kind," I smiled. I could be quite childish and happy for no reason when I had a little too much to drink. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm not okay," I admitted, and then I started crying. I had been trying my hardest not to crack the whole day, but now I could not help breaking out into sobs. He embraced me, just as he had done the first time, and I felt so much better. In between the sobs, I could not help letting him know what had been on my mind lately. I told him how guilty I felt, how much it hurt, and how much I wished that I had more time with my dad. He reassured me and said kind things to me, which helped me to feel so much better. I finally let go of him once I stopped crying. "Oh no, I have made your pajama top wet. I'm sorry." I freaked out. I was a very dramatic and emotional person when I was drunk. "It's fine, don't worry too much," he smiled. Maybe it was because of how safe I felt with him, or the amount of alcohol in my system, but I found myself approaching him. He looked at me questioningly, then I kissed him on the lips. I immediately felt the sparks of lust as the kiss continued for a few seconds, but then he gently pushed me back. "That is probably not a good idea. You are drunk," he said. "You're right. I will leave now." I turned to leave. "I cannot let you. You can sleep in my room. I will take the couch," he said. "Or we can share," I suggested. "Trust me, we will not fit on my single bed. Let me get you something to sleep in," he said as he left the room. He tucked me into bed like I was a little kid and then went to sleep in his living room. It felt nice. The next morning, I had a massive hangover. I felt as if I had been hit with a hammer. I winced in pain as I sat up in the unfamiliar room. Beside me were some pain pills and a bottle of water. Reggie was a lifesaver. That was when it hit me that I was in Reggie's house. I felt embarrassed as I remembered how shameless I had been the previous night. I did not want to, but I cared about how he saw me. After the pills had started to work, and I was feeling less like a dead man walking, I got up. My feet felt very sore, probably the result of me walking all night. A very delicious scent became evident as I made my way into the living room. He was in the kitchen, which was next to the living room. He was wearing an apron with no shirt on, making some food. He smiled when he saw me. "I'm surprised that you are up this early. Take a seat anywhere you want. You should get some food in you. It will help you feel better," he said. "Thank you," I said as I sat at the table close to him. It felt strange to be in his space and be civil to him. Whether I like it or not, I owed him. "No problem. I made bacon and eggs and pancakes too," he said as he dished up for me. We ate in awkward silence, sometimes making eye contact. I did not think either of us knew what to say. So, of course, I tried to make small talk to get rid of the silence, because I hated awkward silences. "You're a good cook," I said. I don't think it compares to the food you were eating while you were overseas. I did miss home though, but I needed to get away from stuff. However, I think I stayed away for far too long. I thought of my father. I think this is the first time I see you take the blame for something, he said. And then he started to stammer, explaining how he did not mean to say that, but it was no use. He had opened a can of worms. No, do not apologize. We should have talked about what happened a long time ago. I was going to take my father's advice and talk through things with Reggie. No matter how mixed my feelings about him had been, he still helped me out at my lowest. When we were in high school, we were good friends. But he was always more popular than me, and I felt as if I had to compete for his attention on most days. So then, I stole my father's car in an attempt to impress his friends. One thing led to another, and we were soon joyriding at night until he asked to drive. I was a pretty good driver, but he was just learning, and he pressurized me. We started fighting because of that, not noticing that we had left the car running. We all managed to get out, but the car was wrecked. When my parents asked me what happened, I was not entirely honest about what happened. I said he asked me to bring the car. While he got in trouble with the adults, my peers saw me as a snitch and a coward. I resented you because you blamed me for the whole incident, he said. All I wanted was to be a part of that group, but afterward, I was even more of a loser. I could not forgive you after that, he said. Look, I messed up, and so did you. But if we have learned something from your father's passing, it is that life is short, he said. You're right. I'm sorry for my part in the whole mess. A lot happened between us, but I am tired of walking around full of hate, I admitted. The way he had treated me over the past few days made me see him in a new light, and maybe consider that he had changed. You're right, we were kids, for goodness sake, he agreed. We looked at each other for a few seconds that I could not help it. I got up and hugged him. I did not know what was up with me those days, but I was always so emotional for no reason at all. I missed you, bro, he said. We spent the next couple of minutes catching up. He let me know some surprising things that had happened in that time that I had been absent. We also reminisced over some of the memories we had when we were still friends, which left us in stitches after a while. We finished eating and washed up while still talking non-stop. There was so much to catch up on from the last 5 days. When it was in the afternoon, we sat by his balcony, drinking juice and talking. I suddenly remembered what Mrs. Finkel had said to me on the first day I came back. I do not mean to intrude, but someone told me that you came out as gay? I began. Yes, it's true. I was dating someone for a while, and it was difficult for the both of us, he said. Are you still with him? I asked. No, we're still good friends though. We both needed different things in our lives, I guess, he said. I'm sorry, I never thought you would be gay. I smiled sheepishly. It's okay, I hid it well, but as I got older, I got tired of it. When I came back, I met Gio, my ex-boyfriend, and we started dating publicly. And you, did you leave a boyfriend in some European country? Oh, I have not been in a proper relationship in ages. I've just been having fun this whole time. I've not found anyone who makes me want to commit, I explained. I hope that you will find someone then. You deserve love. He touched my hand. Who would have ever thought that we would be sitting here talking about love? I laughed. Stranger things have happened, I guess. He winked. Just then, I got an incoming call. It was Mrs. Finkel. Well, I'm about to get scolded. I winced as I got up to answer the call. Why did you not come home last night? This place is more dangerous than it used to be in the past, she began. I tried to get a word in, but she was not done scolding me. I'm sorry, I was with Reggie, I said. You are going to have to think of a better lie than that, she scoffed. I'm serious. It was too late for me to come home, so I slept at his place. I'm sorry for getting you worried, I said. It's fine. Ever since my late husband got attacked by those gangsters at night, I get paranoid. Have you eaten lunch? She asked. Not yet. I'm coming soon, I said. She agreed, then she hung up the phone. Reggie was trying so hard not to laugh at me. Do not say a word, I warned. She rules with an iron fist. Let me go home before she calls me for my own scolding, he said. She actually calmed down when she found out I was with you, I said. We both laughed. He stayed over for lunch because Mrs. Finkel insisted. She was very pleased to find out that we had both sorted out our differences. When he left, I spent the rest of the evening texting him non-stop. There was just so much to talk about between us. We made plans to hang out in a few days after we had talked until early in the morning. Never had I felt so light in my life. My father had been right about letting go of that bad blood. To be continued. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos like this. And as always, stay wholesome.